Yeah, I read the Solo Leveling Manhwa, and I thought it wasn't half bad. Until it was. I already wasn't too interested in Solo Leveling, if my previous video didn't give a hint of it. I thought entertainment wise, it was okay. Don't expect anything more than just fights because all you're going to get is hype moments and aura. But seeing some comments saying that it does get better or that the overall story picks up later with the system stuff coming back into relevance, I said, fuck it. I have nothing better to do right now. Let's just get into it. After 2-ish weeks or so, I finished the manhwa, from chapter 1 to 201. There were very minor changes comparing it to the anime. S-rank hunter scenes, mini cha scenes were not in the manhwa, and just minor details that don't really add much to the overall story. Finalizing my read on chapter 201, only one thing came out of my mind. I don't know how to feel about this. Getting things out of the way, I don't think Solo Leveling is essentially trash anymore. Certain aspects of it are enjoyable, like the art, which looks really stunning. The artist, Jang Rak, does an amazing job on making the story look as visually appealing as it can. Both the artwork and the paneling are such a treat. Also, the character looks much more expressive while also conserving its serious tones and serious plots. There's nothing wrong with your character looking goofy every now and then, and it makes them more pleasing to watch than just plain expression 1, plain expression 2, and so on. Jansen Rack did an amazing job as a story artist. Sadly, he passed away on July 23rd of 2022. May he rest in peace. The story, which I'll get to the flaws in a bit, picks up more by the time the system mystery is revealed. It was a power given to him by the architect to become a host for the Shadow Monarch, Ashbourne. And honestly, I didn't think it was a bad reveal. The way the entire fight with the architect builds up was really cool, and the reveal itself was nice. Not too revealing, but it gives an idea. It's until Jin Woo's death where things pick up more, with a full exposition of the monarchs and the fragments of light, the absolute being separating light and darkness, creating the messengers of God and the 8 monarchs to create balance. They were always on war, and realizing it was all for entertainment, the messengers pretty much did the kill God quest with the absolute being and became rulers. Ashbor wanted revenge for killing the absolute being and paired with the monarchs to defeat the rulers, using Earth as their base, ravaging it in its process, making the rulers use a reincarnation cup on the Earth to prepare for the disaster. Overall, almost nice explanation, the lore drop was satisfying, not half bad. Now, surprisingly, the shadows somewhat play their roles as side characters, meaning the epilogue, the shadows get decently fleshed out. In terms of pet characters, as I like to call them, Igris, Tank, Beru, and Bellion are the shadows that get the most exposition, and it was a really pleasant read. In fact, now that we're here, the epilogue as a whole was really nice. Though I have some strong feelings over the ending, I always dislike the way stories really just end once we reach the conclusion. Noodlefucker. Isn't that what a fucking ending is? Yeah, but I'm talking about the fact that we barely get to see anything else after the climax of the story. No proper conclusion to a lot of memorable characters and barely knowing what happens to them after that, you know? A proper send-off. Solo Leveling does go and get conclusion to the most prominent characters, until I learned that it sets itself up for a sequel. Alright, and we don't talk about how without the epilogue it rushes the fuck out of the ending. Yeah, and also how the last 2 chapters just shit on the story as a whole. And let's not talk about how I was joking. Solo Leveling is fucking mid because of those 2 fuck-ass chapters that just ruin a completely okayish power fantasy and shitting on the entire fucking story for the shit-ass half-baked Disney happily ever after, no stakes at all ending. Look, my name is Noodlefucker, and 3 of my top 10 animes of all time have a time travel plot. And I fucking love them. All 3 of them using time travel not just as a mystery, but as a way to make the story more compelling and interesting. All 3 of them showing the isolation and tragedy of time travel. Time travel, executed correctly, can make a very engaging and powerful story. This is a fucking plot device, a fucking plot convenience, I had no balls to make my story have stakes and went for the most lazy ass solution I could come up with to make a happy ending device. It's fucking ass. ass. You had a good ending right there. No need to turn back time and revive everyone. Sure, Canada and the US were fucking obliterated. Some characters were killed. Which of them? Only one of them? One of them. And he didn't even die in the final battle were actually interesting. And it could have gone for the, but us humans, we keep on pressing forward even when everything seems unwinnable or something like that type of bullshit. Which would have also been a nice callback to Jin Woo's struggles when he was still an E-rank hunter, rebuilding society and building a better future. Oh, but he had to make sacrifices. The world forgot about him and no one knows about his achievements. Not only that, but now he has to fight all the monarchs again and spend 27 years fighting the dimensional rift, isolated from his family and friends. It was the only way. You don't understand Jin Woo's character. Number 1, he won a lot more from using the reincarnation cup than not to. Everyone that died has come back to life and given it another opportunity. His dad never disappeared and his mom never fell into a coma. He fucking goes back in time and speedruns the entire bullshit that happened in the manhwa in one fucking time skip, getting to live a nice and comfortable life. How is that a bad thing? Number 2, I never said that him using the reincarnation cup was out of character. In fact, him not using it was going to be stupider and actually out of character. My issue here is the fact that the reincarnation cup exists in the first place. It was so obviously added for this specific moment. It was only added to have a logical explanation for Jin Woo to turn back time and fix everything. Mind you, Ashbourne said the cup of reincarnation was rendered useless. Useless! I don't know if the author knows what the word useless means, but I'll give him a short summary. It doesn't work. Ashbourne, being the one most connected to the rulers, should know best. It is fucking useless. No, it will soon expire. That's fucking bullshit. Hello, editor Nufuku here, and let's just get this over with. It's 4:43 in the morning. So, on the manhwa, this phrase appears until God's instrument was rendered useless. And since my entire script was done in the manhwa, I took this as fact. However, because I realized that I can't fit this long as panels in the video, I searched up for the manga or slash volume version because I remember seeing one of the physical copies in Barnes & Noble, and fortunately, I found one. However, over here, it says this would continue until the forbidden tool no longer functioned. In essence, both of these pretty much mean the same thing. However, this one absolutely confirms you that the cup of reincarnation is now useless. Meanwhile, this one can be interpreted as this will keep on going until the cup of reincarnation is done for, or that the cup of reincarnation just recently expired. This one at least gives an opportunity for this fucking sentence to make sense. However, on the manhwa version, because both of these are from the manhwa, this one absolutely tells you no. So, just something I wanted to point out, just in case someone read this version too and interpreted it the other way. But I still think this is fucking bullshit. This does not change my opinion at all. Just clarifying that, because I thought this was necessary. And number 3, it's just narratively such an awful decision. All the stakes, all the emotional attachment to the characters, everything that happened in the story just rendered meaningless. Nothing fucking matters anymore because nothing fucking happened to begin with. Noodlefucker, isn't that what most time travel series do to begin with? Exactly, and they don't just use it for the Disney happily ever after plot device. They all use it for mystery, to give stakes using the time travel plot instead of using it for sheer convenience. They're different genres, yeah, but it shows that having a time travel plot is not bad as long as you don't use it for such fucking lazy ass reasons. To not make everything that happened in the story feel so hollow. The ending sucked fucking balls, and without the epilogue it would have been as bad and as rushed as the Oshinoko ending. Maybe even worse, since Oshinoko at least tried, emphasis in tried, to give a proper aftermath without an epilogue. not just off-screening the climax to the end. You could have had a normal, generic, yet mildly interesting power fantasy, could have added an indomitable human spirit speech, and called it a day. Getting the ending out of the way, the actual side characters are pretty much useless. I was expecting for at least Thomas Andre to give a proper fight, but no, Jin Woo is now so strong and such. You know how I said on the anime review video that the S ranks are rendered useless? Yeah, useless is cutting it short. The last proper relevance they have is in the return to the double dungeon arc, and even then, they were getting their ass whooped. I firmly believe that Jin was surpassing the S ranks not even halfway into the story was such a bad decision, even more since these guys were getting hyped up so much just to be decorative characters on the verified onwards. Mind you, they were just becoming relevant in the Jeju Island arc. Chahai's romance with Jin was starting just because he smelled different was an awful way to spark romance with the main character. Later with him saving her from near death made more sense, but it still didn't convince me the slightest. Solo Leveling's focus is on romance, but since it introduced it, at least try to make it interesting. As I previously said, mostly every character is just there. His father didn't become relevant until the very end, mom and sister relevance goes away after the high school incident, Jin Woo is the comic relief character, and the monarchs are as plain as it can get. Chairman Go was known as Jin Woo's sugar daddy, and everybody else was there to glaze or fear Jin Woo. Noodle fucker, aren't you asking too much from a story that is pretty much just about fights? Let's look at Jujutsu Kaisen. Yeah, both of them have nothing in common, but JJK's strong point is fights, and guess what? I did enjoy it. Let's take a look at Mahito, one of my favorite characters in the show. He is pure evil, no redeeming qualities at all. No sad backstory, no reason to empathize or to understand him. Pure evil. But guess what? He's a treat to watch. He's not constantly R farming or is as plain as a piece of cardboard. He has a personality. Rude, cocky, and just fucking obnoxious. Sure, generic, but guess what? He's fun to watch because of him being a proper contrast to the protagonist, Yuji. Seeing them both clash is not already expecting a good fight. You're also seeing a clash against two people that have chemistry as opponents, you get me? Mahito isn't in the story just because he's evil and the story needs a bad guy. He is a direct opposite to the protagonist, not just in ideals, but in personality as well. And with every encounter they have, they both develop as opponents. Unlike Antares, the Frost and Beast Monarch, and Dong Sung Hwang. No clash of ideas or anything, they're just bad because the story needs them like that. Antares is pretty much fulfilling the role of a demon king for a generic isekai, but for Solo Leveling. The Monarch of Frost is slightly more interesting just because of Jin Woo's referring to Chairman Go, since even the Monarch of Beast is as plain as it can get. And Dong Sung Hwang appears for a bit, disappears, becomes relevant again, and gets off-screen a few chapters later. No quirk or proper personality, just a generic, plain, and boring villain. In my eyes, they're pretty much a dungeon boss, and this is not just for them. Every villain in Solo Leveling has nothing to properly remember them for, and it doesn't help that half of them become part of the Shadow Army and the other half just die to be part of the Forgotten Pile with the rest of the characters of the story. I'm not saying that every villain has to have a connection to Jin Woo or have a unique personality, but at least make some of them more interesting instead of making them only evil. Noodle fucker, can't you see the name of the series? It's called Solo Leveling, not side characters leveling or villains leveling. Of course it's gonna focus solely on Jin Woo. It's called Attack on Titan and it's not all about attacking titans. It's called Demon Slayer and it's not all about slaying demons. It's called One Punch Man, it's not all about a man that one punches everything. It's fucking called Danadan and we don't even know what a Danadan is. You can attach yourself from your protagonist, from your main premise, and still make your story interesting, even at times elevating your story. Solo Leveling just doesn't want to do that. But it's a power fantasy, you shouldn't expect much from it. Yeah, I just fucking learned that. I'm sorry for expecting more from a story that has been praised for the past 2 years. Being a power fantasy shouldn't mean it can't have any emotional moments, or that it can't develop more of its characters, or that your characters can't be more interesting than just having a generic, forgettable protagonist with an even more forgettable sidecast. The chairman could have been more developed. Todd could have been more developed. Jin Woo, out of all people, could have had more time dedicated to fleshing him out more, because yeah, even he, the protagonist of Solo Leveling, comes short as a character. Yeah, he's kind and thoughtful and he will burden the fate of the world on himself. But after that, what else is to know about him? He is, in literal sense, your generic protagonist. Nothing to make him stand out, not a single thing. Is asking for a bit of more personality from your protagonist something bad? It shouldn't be. You're gonna have hype moments, good battles, and entertaining characters. Definitely. But unfortunately, Solo Leveling doesn't. At the very end, a lot of things made me disappointing on this story, and I think either better planning from some places or just the author taking more risk would have made the story better. It started off so well, but it fails at making everything else beyond that more engaging. I did see that some of you guys said that the manhwa was rushed at the halfway point due to the deteriorating health of the artist, and I can definitely see that, but I still think that no matter what more you add to this ending, it would still suck. Adding the Copper reincarnation was such a bad decision, and having the actual final battle off screen was poor as well. Not much can I add from the epilogue. I thought it was good until I realized it was setting up its sequel. Not that I disapprove of it, but what more can you really add to it? Pretty much everything has been laid out. No more powerful enemies to defeat and stuff. Jin Woo's son taking his legacy doesn't really interest me, but I'll guess I'll take a peek to it. Maybe the son proves to be a more interesting protagonist than his father. But not now. I think there'll be something to open up next year with. I'll also wait for it to accumulate more chapters to properly talk about it. I also want to do more videos than just solo leveling. I've been stuck on this video for a while, so I'll leave it at that. Solo Leveling is mid, with such an awful ending for its main story. A good number of wasted opportunities and potential to it, and the epilogue was good. I don't really have a favorite character, but I would have liked to have seen more of Singang Lu. I hope I said that right. Talk about some wasted potential. My name is Noodlefucker, and the only thing left for me to say is, like, subscribe, and good night. Oh, and she's pretty, I guess.